Well, I was boxing for the United Auto Workers first, the Golden Gloves. I was an old Golden Glover because I just come out of the service and trying to get myself back to civilization. Boxing was a step. And I went to karate school by just curiosity, stopped, and they were working out, and I wasn't in the least impressed. I mean, they weren't hitting each other, and they're focusing, he said, and this type of thing. He asked me if I was interested, and I said, no, I'm really not. You know, I didn't understand the tradition and the respect and everything of it. I was, I was just a gym rat. And I said, you're not even hitting each other. And he said, well, we can. I said, well, okay, and I'm not interested. So he said, well, what if we sparred, and if you beat me, you can have a free year. If I beat you, you got to sign up for a year. And I said, well, I don't really want either. And he said, are you afraid? I said, no, his closing statement is sales. What is sales pitch? Well, then he dropped me like in about 15 or 20 seconds. And I just said, where do I sign? So I started with that, and then fortunately, a little bit later down the road, he introduced me to Bruce Lee. And I got to train with him a little bit. Not much, but we became friends. We became corresponding friends because his career went to fame and fortune. He went on to be the Green Hornet. I went on to be the whatever Hornet because I left that dojo and started one of my own. But in the process, I got a brown belt in Wado. It was a great dojo, terrific dojo. My instructor was should have been in jail. Well, it actually was a couple of times. So by the last time, he wasn't going to get out in time to help me. And Bruce said, this guy is nuts. I'm out of here. So he went on, and I said, what am I going to do? So I went ahead and started my guys, got them together, and called the Dirty Dozen. We were in a garage, old, awful garage. We walked to school 5 miles every day in the snow. It was pretty Spartan circumstances. I got pictures. And we decided to go to a tournament and did, and they did well. I did awful. I got beat my first thing, but there was a guy there that his students were 1, 2, 3. His name's Harold Long. And just his bearing, just the way he was, he was military, and I missed that. I missed the military. And I went over to him and asked him if I could study with him. And he said, yeah, I'm in Knoxville. Well, I was in Nashville. And what it boiled down to was I was to be there twice a week until he decided what to do with me. And I told him, I said, Mr. Long, I'm in sales with 3M. Twice a week is going to be a little tough for me. He said, well, then don't come. And I said, I see. He said, I'm not trying to talk you into it. I'm up there if you want to not. You approach me. He said, but you'll come twice a week or I won't talk to you. I said, yes, sir, okay. Well, it's 200 miles up there and 200 miles back. I got to drive up there and get the crap beat out of me. But I'm fresh meat. You know how it is when you go into another dojo. This guy's a black belt. He worked with Bruce Lee. I got a beat down like my parents used to give me. So finally, a little bit more. And he just told me, he said, never be late. Never be late. Do not rob my time. I was late for 5 minutes one time because it had snow in Crossville. And I was 5 minutes late. I came up and he said, what are you doing here? I said, well, sir, I'm here for my class. He said, well, you're late for it. It's over. I said, sir? He said, get out. And I said, and of course you didn't argue with him, period. And I said, Mr. Long, can I just say something? He said, on your way out, just talk loud. So I said, sir, it was snowing in Crossville, and it just slowed me. He said, Mr. Shaffer, are you a weatherman or a karateka? He talked just very distinctly like that. I said, well, sir, he said, you don't know? I don't know, get out. Well, I went out and I stood out there, and I thought, well, he's going to come out and go, I knew his routine. He's going to come out and go to the post office, go to lunch, comes out, I'll throw myself on his mercy. So I did, and it didn't faze him. He just walked on past me. Well, I went and got in the car, and I thought, what am I going to do? Go back there and tell the guys he kicked me out, or how am I going to do this and get the job? I need somebody for my guys. I need somebody for me. I'm going nowhere fast, and he's the man. I'm going to go wait for him and see what happens. Well, the snow had caught up by then. he comes in, and I'm standing there like the little match girl, standing outside, not inside. He'd lock the door, stand outside, you know, and Frosty the Snowman. And I looked as pitiful as I could, and he said, "You still here, Mr. Shaffer?" I said, "Yes, sir. Anything I can do, I'll make up for this." "All right, sir." So he said, "Come on in and clean the dojo." So I cleaned the dojo. "Teach the class tonight." "Yes, sir." "Teach my cop class tomorrow night," tomorrow morning. And I said, "Sir, I need to go back." He said, "Sir," I said, "Nothing. I'll be here. I'll be." And he said, "Then would you like to sleep up here?" I said, "Yes, sir. I ain't really come prepared to stay anywhere." So I slept in there, taught the cop class, and I asked him a stupid question. You know, you just go. I said, "Mr. Long, if I'm a black belt in Kung Fu, would I be a black belt in Ishinru?" You see, I mean, why would you ask anybody, especially like him? If there was ever a no-nonsense human being, he was it. And, you know, "Mr. Shaffer, what do you know about Ishinru?" "Mr. Long, well, sir, you dumb, you know, then you're obviously a white belt and an idiot." "Yes, sir, I sure am." So about 4 or 5 months later, he promoted me to he promoted me to knee dan also. I was up there a lot, and I trained hard, and I pleased him, and so that's what happened. I've seen some pretty screwy stuff. It's a good question. I need to, you know, let's see. I've seen what is supposed to be chief low, and I've seen the pressure point stuff and all of that. We worked on that and took the course, and we went up to Nashville and tried with each other. And when you're standing there getting hit 3 times, you know, if I told her, I said, "Listen, I can hit you once and knock you out. I don't really need to do all this. But, you know, if it's something you teach somebody can, okay." Well, we started moving around, and we beat on each other. I mean, we tried to, but all it did was make us throw up, make us sick, you know. It didn't knock us out. So that's my friends for you. God love them. I've seen some feats of strength that were incredible. The first time I saw Bruce Lee do his 6-inch punch, I was flabbergasted, but then I watched it again and again and again, and, you know. It's not mystical. He was ahead of his time, and everything he did seemed unbelievable compared to the rest of the people who were still just throwing a side kick and reverse punch, and that was about it. It was. Plus, oh my goodness, he was a spokesman for himself. A shameless self-promoter, but bright, theatrical, vain, brilliant, likable. He was all of those things. I mean, the guy never could picking him up at the airport. He got off that plane. He was talking to everybody there on the plane. We went to have something. He had on like a blue iridescent suit. He looked like Elvis, Oriental Elvis. And this wasn't the day when Orientals had a real good high place, social place. This was, you know, this was 1965. And I was in there thinking, any minute somebody's gonna scream something about, you know, concentration camps. But he was so likable, and what he did was very good, and he had a lot of information on himself, and had a lot of information on what he was going to be doing. He called it at the time, he had Gung Fu, G-U-N-G, Gung Fu. Or he actually switched over to Jeet Kune Do and did all this stuff. But I remember him bringing that leg up, saying that he liked to do that, put that leg straight up in the air. And mostly he just liked to philosophize. I tell you, he had a little clipping of himself about knocking 3 guys down the street. He'd show you that. And but he was. I don't have a picture of him. I've got nothing. I didn't know he was going to be anything. He said he was going to go up and audition for the Green Hornet in New York. I went, okay. Well, what I couldn't figure out was, how did my instructor know him? I mean, the guy was a con artist and a crook, and was run out of town. Well, how he knew him was he was a con artist, and he called him on the blasted phone and talked to him and somehow convinced him that they were going to set up a group of dojos. He was going to finance it, use Bruce's name, And he got there, of course, Bruce realized that, the guy couldn't finance a hot dog stand. And he had snookered him. They had bracelets of being blood brothers that they wore. I mean, and Bruce was young. He was a kid himself. And he was wanting to get ahead in life. And this guy was very convincing, very convincing. So he finally told me, he said, "Oh my," he said, "this is not good." I said, "I know, I told you." So he said, "Let's work out." So I've got a couple of letters from him, and we had phone calls and whatnot. But once I went with Mr. Long and started going to tournaments, at the time he was against tournaments, and he didn't believe in kata. Now he ran them to show off, but he didn't believe in them. He didn't believe in tournaments, but he went in demonstration. So he didn't start to ignore me, but the last advice he gave me, I told him, I said, "We're going to Chattanooga," and I said, "They're laying for us to try to embarrass us." And he said, "That's okay." And he said, "Just go down there." He said, "Don't act like you hadn't been before. If anybody says anything, hit them right in the mouth." I said, "Okay, I'll sure do it." Didn't have to do that, but we made our mark, and that's where I met Mr. Long. So I think, and then Mr. Long wrote him and told him I was switching over to Ishin Road and copied another instructor. So he was busy, and I think his duty was done. He said, "I'm going to come through Nashville and work with you guys," and that kind of thing, but it never came to thing. But I think back, I think, my gosh, I don't have a single picture with this guy. Nothing. I have the letter, but should I even tell anybody I knew him? I mean, everybody else knows him. You can't walk down the street and shake hands and somebody doesn't say they knew Bruce Lee real well, But I didn't know him real well. I knew him well enough to know that I liked him a lot. He liked me too, so I was nobody. He was just a good guy.